The night air over Storm's End carried the briny scent of Shipbreaker Bay, and Renly Baratheon inhaled it as though it were the promise of triumph itself. Lanterns flickered along the massive stone ramparts, glimmering upon his green-gold armor. Far below, the surf whispered against the rocks in restless applause while bannermen bustled about the darkened yard, checking tackle and lashings, preparing wagons of grain and kegs of arbor red for the morrow's sail. Renly's thoughts, however, bent not to simple logistics but to destiny. He paced the rampart walk alone save for Ser Loras Tyrell, whose bright rose and gold breastplate flashed beneath the moons. Loras's lilac eyes glittered, and when he spoke his voice carried the easy confidence of youth and unconquered tournaments. "By dawn," said the Knight of Flowers, 40 Tyrell warships will anchor beneath the Red Keep's shadow. Marjorie's garden barges follow in their wake, laden with enough fresh fruit to shame the markets of Volantis. When the small folk taste summer in the dead of spring, they'll cheer your name until the bells crack. Renly paused where the wind knifed strongest, letting his green cloak whip about his calves. Beyond the castle, a fleet shimmered at anchor, sleek galleys with swan-necked prows, Tyrell sails folding like petals in the dark. They'll cheer, Robert always said the commons loved a king who filled their bellies. He laid a gauntlet hand on the sea-damp stone. But hungry lords are another matter. We must win their hearts before we win their swords. Loras smiled, an expression both earnest and razor-sharp. Hearts are grown like roses, my king. Feed them light and water, and they'll flourish. Deny them, and they wither. He tilted his head toward the bay. Our fleet is the light, our food the water. Cersei has naught but thorns. Renly's answering laugh rolled low, but his eyes lingered on a distant speck of lantern gold where Highgarden's flagship, the Lady Lyanna, rode impatient swells. Your house's generosity knows no bounds, sire. Yet every lantern we hang on those ships draws Lannister eyes. Varys's little birds will be chirping in the Red Keep by now. Let them. Loras gave a cavalier shrug. Even lions know terror when the rose's scent turns iron. He touched the pommel of his long sword, a silver rose in bloom. Besides, you have another weapon, the will of the realm. The capital despises Cersei's brood. They'll throw open the gates. Renly rested a fist atop the Merlin. Perhaps, but King's Landing is a beast of 10,000 minds. Fear alone can drive it to bite. He thought of flame-haunted alleyways from a childhood visit, of beggars clawing crusts from gutters. We cannot let panic reign. Steel clacked on stone as boots approached. Brienne of Tarth emerged, towering in her blue steel, hair whipped across her cheek. She knelt at once. Your Grace, Lord Rowan seeks audience. The grain wagons are ready. Renly nodded. Tell him I come presently. Brienne rose. Her eyes, the blue of winter seas, lingered a half-breath on Loras before she strode off, silent as a shadow draped in steel. Poor maid, Loras murmured, voice low. She loves you as the sunrise loves the sea. Renly let the jest pass. He watched Brienne disappear into torchlit gloom. She loves honor, he said quietly, and sees it where others see only ambition. A horn blew thrice from the inner ward, Lord Rowan's impatience. Renly turned briskly. Come. Tonight the banners are sorted. At first light we sail. King's Landing while yet unbloodied. Else this gambit becomes a siege, and summer fruit rots on the docks. They descended the spiral staircase, cloaks trailing, emerging into a courtyard crawling with activity. Smiths hammered rivets through shield leather. Stable hands led destriers, their harness studs polished to mirror sheen. Pavises bearing the crowned stag of House Baratheon, newly painted in Renly's green, leaned against stacking rails. Lord Mathis Rowan, broad of shoulder and red-cheeked as a harvest apple, awaited them beneath a flickering sconce. Grains loaded, Your Grace, enough to feed half King's Landing a fortnight, if my stevedores ain't lying. He glanced skyward. Weather looks fair. It'll hold. Renly clasped the older lord's forearm in warm salute. Your harvest may feed more than bellies, Mathis. It'll feed hope. Rowan grunted approval, then glanced at Loras.
Sir.
The Rose Road columns depart at dawn, per your order. If the fleet fails to open the gates, it will not fail, Loras assured. But should the walls close to us, the road force will compel surrender. No fire, no sack, no needless slaughter. He met their eyes with a zeal that outshone the forge fires. We are not Stannis. Renly's jaw tightened at his brother's name. Stannis means well, but he knows only iron and law. King's Landing has tasted iron. It now thirsts for mercy. He motioned for Rowan to walk with him toward the raised drawbridge. Tell your quartermasters, civilians shall be fed first, soldiers last. Some might bristle, Rowan warned. Renly allowed a half-smile. And yet they'll still eat. Loyalty is earned in empty moments, not full. They halted at the bridge, overlooking the dark swells and the silhouettes of warships rocking at anchor. Loras joined them, the three figures arrayed like strategists upon a Sivas board. Far off, a bell tolled twice from Storm's End sept midnight. Renly inhaled again, tasting salt and destiny. At roughly this hour, the gold cloaks change their watch. By the morrow's third bell, they'll glimpse green sails cresting Blackwater Bay. Some will bolt, some will kneel, some will fight. He glanced to Loras. Ser Garland commands the vanguard once ashore. Remind him, hold Stepton's gate, but spill no unnecessary blood. Loras inclined his head. He understands. Rowan folded arms thick as oak limbs. And the Iron Throne? Renly's gaze drifted to the horizon where, unseen, the Red Keep slept. The throne is an iron chair, but the realm is its people. We capture one through the other. Tonight we sail for both. When dawn peeled open the eastern sky like a soft cracked egg, mists veiled Blackwater Bay. Pale gold seeped over the world, gilding wave crests and turning the Tyrell sails into ghostly petals. The fleet moved in disciplined silence. 40 warships leading 6 lumbering grain barges and 3 pleasure galleys whose decks overflowed with trellised vines and living blossoms, sweet scent trailing astern. On the flagship Lady Lyanna, Renly stood at the stern rail alongside Ser Courtenay Penrose, who served as master of ships in this endeavor. Courtenay's salt-flecked beard bristled as he studied the hazy coastline. Winds mild, tides with us, he growled. But the river mouth narrows quick. If the chain's raised, Renly lifted a hand. It won't be. Varys's whispers say the chain was damaged when Stannis' scouts tested it, and the smiths lack proper iron for repairs. Even if it's mended, Ser Mace swears on his beard that his sappers can drop it before dusk. The Sea of Dorne parted as the sun climbed, revealing the upthrust spear of Dragonstone in the hazy distance. Smoke drifted from that ancient fortress, but Renly spared it scarcely a thought. Let Stannis brood upon basalt cliffs. This day belonged to living green. Around midday the mists thinned and the walls of King's Landing appeared. Uneven stones baking beneath new sun, banners limp in windless air. River stinks already reached the decks, mingling with flower perfume in jarring contrast. Courtenay barked orders. Drums rolled, sails eased. Rowers dipped oars in precise cadence as 40 warships formed a chevron aimed for the mud gate. Ahead, a fishing skiff bobbed, crew frozen at the sight of the Emerald Fleet. One fisherman crossed himself and leapt overboard. Renly's heart beat heavy but calm. He wore no helm. Buds of sweat beaded his brow. At Loras's insistence, he had donned a cloak stitched from summer leaves, each embroidered with tiny golden lions inverted. A subtle jest at Cersei's expense. Trumpets sounded from the city walls. 3 blasts, confused. Shapes scurried along the battlements. Gold cloaks rushing to posts, crossbowmen scrambling. Yet no catapults hurled flame, no scorpions loosed iron. The city seemed more curious than combative. Lady Lyanna's prow sliced the river mouth. The barges drifted behind, train of abundance. Garland Tyrell, broad-shouldered and calm, stood upon the prow of the Merryweather Rose, his armor a living garden of beaten bronze vines. Behind him flew Renly's crowned stag standard, flanked by the golden rose of Highgarden. As they passed beneath the ramparts, Renly raised a hand in open greeting. "Good people of King's Landing, I come not as conqueror, but as healer. In memory of good King Robert, I claim my place to guard this realm from war and want." His voice, amplified by a Myrish horn, carried across water and stone. The reply was a roar. First jeers, then cheers muddled together. But when the pleasure galleys drew abreast, and sailors tossed baskets of peaches and loaves of fresh bread toward the docks, a hungry cheer rose all along the quay. Dockhands scrambled for fruit. Mothers lifted children to catch rolling apples. A line of gold cloaks formed hastily upon the wharf, pikes lowered. Their captain, a burly man with graying beard, hesitated as Renly's banner dipped in salute, courtly training ward with survival in his eyes. Finally, he jabbed a fist skyward. "Lower your pikes," he shouted. The pikes lifted. The line parted. Lady Lyanna's plank thudded onto the pier. Garland Tyrell strode first, helm under arm. He embraced the captain, shared a whispered promise of coin and mercy, then raised clasped hands in triumph. Within an hour, every warship berthed on the docks, men-at-arms fanning through the fish market and along River Row. They marched two abreast, standards streaming, but their swords remained sheathed, axes strapped. Instead of torching warehouses, they opened wagons and distributed grain by the scoop, under watchful eyes of sergeants. In Flea Bottom, children chased after rose-cloaked soldiers handing out oranges. On the street of Silk, brothel windows flung open. Painted women tossed garlands to Renly's knights, calling blessings. When the Tyrell knights donned wreaths in reply, laughter bubbled like wine. Yet all remained tense around the Red Keep. The hilltop fortress loomed crimson and white above twisting streets, its gates barred. Lannister men in crimson cloaks lined its walls, bows at the ready. Renly dismounted at the base of the hill where the King's Gate met the great thoroughfare. Sunlight glinted off gold cloaks arrayed there, barricades of overturned wagons blocking ascent. By the gate, Commander Jacelyn Bywater, monstrous hook hand glinting, waited astride a black destrier. Renly strode forward, helm under arm. Loras flanked him, blade peacebound. Brienne, wearing the stag and trident sigil gifted her, towered silent. "Lord Renly," Bywater's voice echoed from beneath his plain helm. "Queen Regent commands that none approach the Red Keep on pain of death." Renly halted a spear length away, eyes steady. "Commands backed by starvation and fear, sire. Yet look around. Fear slips its leash when hope arrives. The Queen has no claim save her sons, and that babe born of incest. I come to end that lie." Bywater's gaze flicked to the Tyrian coins already clinking in commoners' hands, to the barrels of grain rolling up lanes. "The gold cloaks follow gold, not names," he said, "but they follow order too. Should chaos reign, who keeps peace?" Renly extended an open palm. "Stand with me, sire. Together we keep the peace under lawful rule." A hush fell. In distant alleys, dogs barked. Bywater's destrier stamped, iron-shod hoof striking sparks. Finally, the commander raised his hook. The barricade dismantled, carts shoved aside. He spurred closer, voice lowered. "Queen's Guard draws up inside. Meryn Trant's hungry for war, and there is wildfire under the city. Rumor says the pyromancers stored casks anew." Renly understood the warning. Push too hard and flames devour king and commoner alike. He nodded. "Then I shall parley, not storm. Bring me Ser Mandon more." Bywater's mouth twitched. "He answers only to the Queen." "Then bring me a Septon," Renly countered. "We shall talk through holy walls." An hour later, Renly stood within the nave of the Great September of Baelor. Sun screamed through high windows to pool in rainbow shards upon the patterned marble. Motes danced like newborn hopes. Before the altar, the Queen Regent Cersei Lannister awaited, armored in shimmering scale mail, hair coiled in a golden crown of braids. Beside her paced Ser Mandon Moore, white cloak sweeping. Renly bowed stiffly. Cersei's green eyes glittered as though they drank every candle flame. "Bold of you to step beneath sacred arches," she said. though bolder still to sail a fleet of vipers to my door. My door now, Renly corrected mildly. Yet I seek no bloodshed, sister. He gestured to the pews where small folk pressed, wide-eyed. The realm bleeds enough. Cersei's lashes narrowed. A realm of fools who'd trade sins for peaches. But hunger passes, fear endures, and should your bright sails vanish, fear shall return. Fed by steel, sharpened by debt. Renly stepped closer, voice low so only she heard. Fear cannot fill coffers, Cersei. The Iron Bank has frozen your credit. Your gold mines yield half what they did. Soon every sell's word will drift away like crows from a cold corpse. He leaned, letting candlelight gild his polished gorget. Join me. You keep the castle, the children safe, the lion's share of honor. I take the throne but rule through benevolence, not spite. Together we avert war. Her smile curved cruel. Together? I see no together when I look at you, Renly. I see the boy who once battered at Jaime with a wooden sword and wept when he lost. Now you wish to play at kings. Her gaze darted to the stag on his breastplate. You wear Robert's antlers, but they will not bear the weight. Renly felt Loras tense behind him, but he merely raised brows. Weight sits lighter when shared, sister. I offer an open hand. Refuse it, and tomorrow's dawn shall bring siege towers. Your wildfire will burn children first. Cersei's breath hissed. For a heartbeat something in her eyes wavered. Fear perhaps, or recognition of her own narrow path. Then Ser Mandon stepped between, white cloak flaring. His Grace Joffrey rules by right of birth and blessing of High Septon. Any who deny it commit treason. Renly lifted his voice for all to hear. The High Septon stands within these walls. Let him speak. Does he bless a crown woven of incest? Gasps rippled among the listeners. The plump High Septon shuffled from shadows, wringing his hands. My children, rumors breed like lice. He faltered under Cersei's glare. She whispered something sharp. The Septon swallowed. I see no proof of such sin. Renly's jaw clenched. Yet before he could answer, a bang echoed. The sept doors burst inward. A gold cloak captain staggered in, blood running down his cheek. Your Grace, he shouted toward Renly. The Red Keep's main gate opens. Half the stationed guards kneel, chanting your name. Queen's men draw swords on each other. Cersei's face drained white. She whirled on Ser Mandon. Bring Joffrey to Maegor's holdfast. Seal the treasuries. If the chain is not raised, raise it now. She swept toward the exit, guards clustering. Renly did not pursue. Instead, he raised his voice, resounding through vaulted space. Citizens of King's Landing, I came with mercy, and mercy remains my banner. Lay down arms, and you shall share in summer's bounty, free of fear and famine. Stand against me, and you stand against the realm's peace. Outside, bells began to toll. Not alarm, but joyous clamor rolling across rooftops like thunder of new rain. The commons poured into streets, waving green pennants improvised from dyed sashes. From the sept steps, Renly watched smoke rising near the Gate of the Gods where a bred riot had turned into chaotic celebration. Yet amidst cheers came the hollow boom of distant scorpions firing from the Red Keep. Lannister archers on the walls let shafts fly at any cloak not crimson. Renly mounted his gelding, armor ablaze in dawn-filtered sun. Loras, Garland, reform ranks on Aegon's high hill but hold position. No storming until we parley anew. He turned to Brienne. You command the city watch with Bywater. Keep order, safeguard women and children. Any soldier caught thieving or raping loses a hand. Brienne saluted, blue eyes fierce. As you command, your grace. The next hours blurred. Emissaries riding back and forth under tattered flags of truce. Lists of demands exchanged. Tyrell engineers hauling trebuchet arms yet refusing to notch them. Lords from every quarter of the city flocked beneath Renly's banner. Big Walder went, red-faced Lord Slint with craven grin, even the merchant princes of Spicetown offering coin and transport. Yet the Red Keep endured, a sullen heart of defiance. Cersei hoarded wildfire in her cellars, threatening to ignite the city if Renly breached her gates. The realm hung poised on a blade's width between triumph and cataclysm. Night fell heavy, but torches reddened the streets with a defiant glow. Camps ringed the castle, but no assault came. Instead, music drifted from makeshift feasting grounds. Tyrell singers lifted ballads while cooks roasted boar. Renly walked among tents as any soldier, tasting broth, sharing jokes. He found hearts buoyed yet wary. Come midnight, he returned to his command pavilion pitched near the September Loras waited inside. Helm off, hair damp from sweat. Maps sprawled across a table where candles shrank in pools of wax. Loras looked up. The queen refuses every term. She demands our withdrawal and swears to purge the capital of flowers. Renly sank onto a camp chair. Weariness pulled at him, though adrenaline still hummed. Tomorrow we tighten the noose. Cut her water, but send word. Surrender ends the drought. Loras's jaw worked. Let me take a select force over the walls at night. One sharp thrust. Remove the queen. Crown aside. No wildfire risk. Renly considered the boldness shining in his lover's eyes. Cersei's claws dig deep. Remove them and the Red Keep may comply. But if we fail, we become villains. He reached to clasp Loras's wrist. Not yet. Give Mercy a day more. A night breeze riffled the tent flap, bringing faint fragrances of crushed rose petals and horse dung. Outside, the city murmured like a restless sleeper. Loras exhaled. Very well. One day, he brushed Renly's gauntlet fingers with his own. A fleeting, urgent touch. But should dawn bring no surrender, I will move without hesitation. Renly nodded, the weight of crown invisible yet immense. Understood. For now, sleep if you can. Tomorrow the realm decides whether stag or lion rules its fate. Dawn's first gray hush spilled over King's Landing. A fog clung low, ghosting over pavestones. Within Maegor's holdfast, Cersei stood at a narrow window slit, clad in crimson silk, wildfire lamp in trembling hand. Joffrey paced behind her, voice petulant. Why do we not attack? They pelt my men with peaches. Peaches! Cersei's gaze fixed on the fog where Tyrell banners drifted like weeds on a pond. She thought of Jaime far in the Riverlands, of father in the west. Alone, she faced a storm, but a storm met with wildfire might yet consume the world. Footsteps approached. Pyromancer Haleen bowed low. Most puissant grace, the caches are primed. One spark to the secret tunnels beneath the city and... No. Cersei snapped. Not until my order. She watched the camps. If Renly died this day, if some stray arrow found him, perhaps chaos would fracture the coalition and Stannis would sweep in afterward. She need only survive the storm's first blow. Down in the fog, horns blared. Drums rolled. Lines of soldiers advanced toward the castle gates, shields raised but swords sheathed. At their head rode Renly, antlered helm high, cloak of leaves fluttering. Cersei gripped the wildfire lamp. Below, Renly reined in. His voice, borne on sorcery-worked horn, rung across the battlements. Queen Cersei Lannister, in the name of King Robert Baratheon, whose memory you claim to honor, I bid you yield the young princes into protective custody. Stand trial for regicide and incest, or face full judgment of realm and gods. Silence answered. Then a single arrow hissed down, clattering off Renly's reins. A second buried in the earth near his boot. Renly did not flinch. He raised a gauntlet fist, and behind him the Tyrell horns sounded 3 long moans. Siege ladders carried forward, but remained at parade rest. Cersei's pulse hammered. She snapped orders. Archers drew again. Yet in that instant a roar surged behind her. Footsteps thundered in the hall, shouts of alarm. She spun as gold cloaks burst into the solar, swords bared, escorting a tall figure in plain mail. Commander Bywater saluted curtly. Forgive intrusion, your grace, but half the city watch declares allegiance to King Renly. The rest will not stand alone. Cersei's lamp trembled. Traitors, she hissed. My father will hang your heads. Bywater's face betrayed no triumph, only exhaustion. Your father is leagues away. The realm is here. He advanced a step. Relinquish the king before blood floods these halls. Joffrey shrank behind his mother. She pushed him aside, wildfire sloshing. I will die before surrender. Bywater eyed the glass lamp warily. So might we all. But what would wildfire leave of Tommen? Of Myrcella? Cersei's throat constricted. She saw children's faces, innocent, golden. Her grip slackened. For one heartbeat she stood between ruin and surrender. Queen, lioness, frightened woman. At last, tears shining unshed, she thrust the lamp into Bywater's hook. Take it, she whispered. Take the crown as well and see if it burns you. High noon bathed Aegon's high hill in merciless light. The gates of the Red Keep stood open. Renly rode abreast of Garland Tyrell through courtyard throngs where gold cloaks lined in orderly companies. Pikes grounded. Ahead, Commander Bywater approached, helmet tucked under arm. A small boy with tousled blonde curls walked beside him. Tommen, eyes wide and wet. Behind followed Myrcella and Joffrey, the latter sullen, wrists bound in silk cords. Cersei trailed under guard, shoulders bowed. Renly dismounted. He knelt before the children, voice gentle. Fear not, you remain princes of the realm. No harm shall come. He rose, addressing the army. Witness, the Red Keep yields. A roar thundered back. Stag horns and rose banners swayed in jubilation, yet Renly held up a hand. This victory is not conquest but reunion. Let the realm heal. He ordered Joffrey escorted to comfortable quarters under watch, Cersei to stand trial before the lords. Tommen and Myrcella, too young to judge, would live as honored wards. That evening, Renly ascended the Iron Throne in the throne room draped hastily with new tapestries. Stags bounding through summer fields mingled with roses twining. The hall thrummed with expectation. Lords of houses great and small knelt in sequence. Rowan, Tarly, Hightower, even Petra Baelish with sly smile. Yet when Renly's crown, fresh forged of antler-shaped gold, filigreed with emeralds, settled upon his brow, he saw not triumph but burden. The realm cheered, yet outside coffers lay near empty, storm clouds of war yet brewed. Stannis would not abide this coronation. Robb Stark marched in the north. Greyjoy sails prowled summer seas. Still hope lived, fragile as dawn light. He gripped the armrests of cold iron. Beside the throne stood Loras, unsmiling, hand on hilt. On the steps below waited Brienne, warding with quiet ferocity. Renly raised his voice, steady as tide. Lords and ladies of Westeros, I rise not to revel in victory, but to serve. Bread shall fill your tables before taxes fill my coffers. Justice shall bind crown and commons alike. And with new dawn the realm shall learn that mercy wears a stag's crown. The hall erupted in acclaim. Banners shook, torches flared, voices merged into a single thunderous oath. Renly, Renly, Renly. Far above, unseen upon the city's highest rampart, a raven took flight into the dying light, bearing tidings of a new crowned king. But beyond its wings rode another raven still, steered by darker winds, winging toward Dragonstone where brooding Stannis waited with fires burning and a red woman whispering of shadows in the night. The sunrise of Renly Baratheon's first full day upon the Iron Throne spilled across the throne room's high, arched windows in reluctant streaks, as though the very sun weighed his crown and wondered if dawn should come at all. Night's candles had guttered to stub pools upon the floor, the scent of tallow mingling with stale incense. Courtiers, lords great and lesser, merchants bold enough to scent profit, and priests hovering in anxious prayer, had slept where they dared. Across benches, against pillars, some curled upon the rush-strewn floor in cloaks now crumpled by cold stone and grand ambition alike. Renly himself had not left the hall. Through the black hours, he had sat upon the Iron Throne with Loras Tyrell at his side, sometimes speaking in low counsel, sometimes silent, listening to the growl of distant wheels as carts of grain rolled through unfamiliar streets under watchful Tyrell eyes. From the throne's twisted iron, Robert's ghost had seemed to lean and whisper, This chair devours the unready, little brother. Renly had answered that ghost only in his thoughts. I will feed it with mercy, not blood. Let it choke on kindness if it must. When the pale sun at last found purchase on his armor, he stirred, joints aching from immobility and the sharper aches of sudden sovereignty. Loras touched his forearm. Enough! Even a king bleeds if he sits upon blades too long. Renly allowed himself a grim smile. Would you have me trade them for roses? Only if their thorns are sharper. The Knight of Flowers offered a hand, pulled him upright, and in that motion rested his cheek a breath against Renly's mailed shoulder, so briefly none but the throne itself could claim witness. A page boy no older than 12 hurried forward, clutching a polished horn cup. He knelt, eyes bright with terror and awe both. Morning wine, your grace, honeyed from the arbor. Lord says it soothes a rough night's counsel. Renly accepted, tasting summer apples and warm clover. Tell your lord I drink to his health. The boy fled, cheeks aflame. My brother once broke his fast with 6 flagons, Renly muttered. We will settle for this. He surveyed the hall. Small folk envoys huddled near the doors, hopeful for edicts that might unclog the city's keys. Scribes flicked sand upon fresh proclamations, tongues clucked in calculation. Above it all, the Iron Throne loomed as though alive, the light clawing its barbs into shadow claws that reached across the marble like hungry roots. He stepped down the dais, Loras beside him, Brienne a silent pillar at his back. Dawn's hush broke beneath shuffling boots as lords found footing, bowed with varying degrees of stiffness. Renly noted the way some eyes lingered not on him but on the Tyrell green cloaks massed outside the hall, murmurs of flowers overrunning stone already sprouted in the rumor soil. At the base of the steps, Peter Baelish approached in doublet of somber charcoal, mockingbird pin glinting. Your grace, he said with smooth grace. The small council stands ready to convene. I have taken the liberty of assembling those most capable of swift obedience. His smile had a knife's polite flicker. A king at dawn requires a treasury before dusk. The treasury. Renly's pulse quickened with the first true sting of rule. Bread he could conjure with Tyrell purses and Stormland's harvests, but coin? The crown's debts were a roiling sea. Robert had ladled them deeper with every tourney and feast, and now Renly must swim. He motioned for Baelish to lead. Loras moved as well, but Renly stayed him with a glance. Rouse the gold cloak's captains, he murmured. I want rotations doubled at every granary, and the street of flour cleared of hawkers. A riot of plenty can be as dangerous as a riot of want. Loras's lavender eyes warmed. I'll see it done. His hand squeezed Renly's briefly, armor to armor, hearts beneath. Then he strode off, sigil roses swirling in his cloak's lining. Brienne followed Renly and Baelish through the arcaded corridor that led to the Tower of the Hand. Gilded sunlight flickered across mosaics of Aegon's conquest, dragons scorching kings. Not subtle, Renly thought, but apartment servants bowed low, but their eyes lingered on Brienne's height. She ignored them, one gauntlet fist resting lightly upon her sword hilt. Inside the council chamber, the heavy oaken chairs formed a ring about a polished table unmarred by the scorch rims of Robert's torchlit brawls. Varys arrived with a rustle of lavender silk, whispering apologies. Grand Maester Gorman, a portly reachman who had replaced Pycelle after the old man's untimely fever, shuffled with scrolls. Mathis Rowan filled the seat of Master of Laws. Seats for Master of War and Coin lay vacant until Renly waved Baelish to the latter. Baelish bowed, then placed before him a ledger painted in red ink so thick it seemed to clot. Our coffers, your grace, appear robust only until one asks them to pay. He flipped pages with a lover's touch. The crown owes 10 million dragons, near half to the Iron Bank. The rest is due to Tyrell lenders, Braavosi captains, and... His pale eyes gleamed. The faith of the Seven. Renly folded gauntlets before him. We will repay. The realm must know its word is iron. Varys's spidery fingers nested. Mercy on the streets is precious. Yet without coin the Dornish garrisons may wonder if their wages are a promise or a song. Renly fixed him. Dorne has no quarrel with me, Baelish shrugged. At present. Yet coin is the pulse of loyalty, and your heart would do poorly to stop beating. Lord Rowan cleared his throat. The Reach stands ready to extend further credit, at fair interest. Renly inclined his head. And I stand ready to negotiate, but none shall profit from this struggle save the realm entire. Usury will not be our coin. Baelish smirked as though at an amusing child, but spoke no challenge. Instead he pivoted to news. Tywin Lannister marches east from the Golden Tooth with 20,000. Raventail's claim he heads for Harrenhal. Renly's stomach tightened. Tywin in the Riverlands could cut lines to Highgarden, could rally such houses as wavered. But Harrenhal also lay door to the north. Robb Stark fights south of the Twins, Varys added. Victories thus far, yet winter wolves tire when far from snow. Renly leaned back, measuring options. We send envoys north under truce. Promise recognition of Robb as Lord Paramount if he bends knee. Offer marriages, perhaps Marjorie's cousin to his uncle Edmure, should that please. We cannot fight Lannister and Stark both. Rowan nodded. The young wolf's pride is high. Sweet words may temper steel. Baelish's smile sharpened. Sweet words laced with gold doubly so. A dowry, mayhap. Your grace might ask the Tyrells for. Renly cut him off. House Tyrell has given enough this fortnight. We'll draw from port tariffs, once we free the tariffs. His mind already leapt. Reopen trade, welcome Volantene spice barges, waive first season docking fees. Prosperity had a roar as fierce as any lion. Brienne spoke for the first time, voice rough as unpolished iron. And the Queen Mother? She plots. All eyes turned. Few had become accustomed to the Sapphire Isle giantess voicing strategy. She flushed but squared shoulders. I guard her door. She whispers with her maids in High Valyrian. I know enough to hear she sighs of dragons. Varys pressed fingertips together, lids half-veiled. Ah, the Red Woman of Dragonstone seeds such dreams. Cersei once asked pyromancer Haleen of Dragonfire. Shadows cling to her thoughts. Renly exhaled. Keep her under watch but unharmed. A fair trial requires fairness even for lions. He tapped knuckles upon the table. Now, I name Lord Randall Tarly Master of War. The declaration rolled through the chamber like distant thunder. He commands bedrock discipline and stands loyal to my cause. Baelish arched a brow. Lord Tarly is blunt steel. House Tyrell's blossom may bristle. Then let them bristle together into a hedge no foe may pass. Renly rose. This council is adjourned until the hour of goat. Outside the tower, air smelled of baking bread from hastily reopened ovens. The streets of Silk still bore scorch marks from Lannister arrows, but already peddlers pushed carts of Tyrell apples, calling them King's Blessing. Renly signaled Brienne to walk with him. They strode downhill toward Flea Bottom, where a makeshift infirmary had sprung near the ruined Potter's Guild. Men and women, some cut in mere scuffles, some starved, sought aid from maesters working under linen awnings bearing the stag and rose. Everywhere, eyes followed the antlers on Renly's crown. Some faces glowed with hope, others weighed with the pragmatist's question. Will hope last? Renly paused to kneel beside an elderly woman clutching a cracked water jug. He poured fresh water from his own skin and pressed a copper stag into her palm. Her gums were bare. Tears traced grime down her cheeks. Bless you, my king, she croaked. In that fragile blessing, Renly felt the realm's heartbeat weak, but beating. If Tywin or Stannis snapped that pulse, it would not matter whether the crown shone green or gold. Brienne watched silently, then spoke once they'd moved on. Loras loves you fiercely, she said, as if confessing a crime. But love does not always shield the loved. Renly studied her broad, earnest face. And you, Brienne? What shields me? She straightened. Oath, until my breath fails. He smiled, touched by a warrior's simplicity. Then may your breath prove long. The raven from Dragonstone arrived at dusk, wings ragged from hard flight. It bore only a strip of vellum scrawled with a single line. The night is dark and full of terrors, but the storm shall break upon Blackwater before dawn of the third day. The fire ink of the words shimmered faintly as if ember-born. Renly read them thrice beneath torchlight in his solar. Stannis, he muttered, though the quill strokes were not his brother's compact script. Melisandre's hand, no doubt. Loras, leaning against the shuttered window, scoffed. He warns as though courtesy were armor. Renly set the note aflame in a brazier. He warns because he means to strike. 3 days, he will sail upriver under night, counting on wildfire caches to ignite once he breaks chain. Then we break him first. Loras crossed to the map board, finger jabbing the Blackwater's mouth. We hold the chain in shadow, let him sail midstream, then yank, trap, burn. His eyes gleamed in the fire's dance. Your fleet can be ready, Renly considered. The Tyrell ships are swift but few, 40 against Stannis' 100. Slower, laden with stone for siege, Loras argued. And we know the river now as we know each other's skin. Stannis knows only cold coasts. Brienne stood near the door, helm beneath arm. Cold coasts breed hard men. Do not shame them lightly. Loras bristled. I speak truths, not mockery, my lady. Renly intervened. Hard men break all the same when food rots and pay dries. Still, we prepare. Garland will oversee chain repairs. Brienne, gather the city watch captains at first bell. I will inspect every cask of wildfire. If Haleen hides even one beyond count, we must know. Brienne inclined her head. Loras approached Renly quietly as she departed. Let me ride for Bitterbridge tonight. I'll muster the remainder of Highgarden's banners. Tarly, Fossaway, 1,000 mounted reach knights, will flank Stannis as he lands. Renly clasped his hand. Ride at dawn, but take a token guard only. The Tyrell lords must see your haste is faith, not threat. Loras's hand tightened, lingered. And you? With Brienne at your side, you still risk steel and sorcery both. I risk them because I must. A king cowering in keep shadows is no king. Renly drew Loras close, lips brushing ear. Return swift, my sweet knight, or this city will remember mercy only as a rumor. Storm clouds thickened on the second day. Not rain clouds, but columns of dust from refugee camps rising beyond the city's northern gate. Farmers fleeing Riverland's pillage, free riders harried by Lannister outriders. They told tales of twin towers ablaze, of wolves clashing lions beneath banners sodden with blood. In the throne room, Renly received a delegation from these refugees. Ragged men in leather jerkins, a woman with babe bound to her breast, an elderly septon leaning on a bent staff. They knelt, heads low.
Stand, Renly commanded.
Tell your grief, the septon spoke, voice tremulous. Fields burn, your grace. Lord Tywin's riders heed no banner save his. We fled south, but roads choke with dead carts. Our wives would starve but for the grace of the mother. Renly's words flew before thought. You will not starve. The crown opens city granaries to all who labor. Men may build, women weave sails or brew stock. No coin owed until summer's end.
Tears with tired faces.
The woman clutched her babe closer and whispered a blessing on his house. But as they withdrew, Peter Baelish slid from Pillar's shadow, expression of faint amusement. A noble gift, your grace. And when summer ends, Renly met his gaze square. By then the realm will prosper enough for wages. And if it does not, then we will sow again. His voice hardened. One cannot reap gold from ashes. Feed them and they will till new fields. Baelish bowed. Yet the mock in his eyes was a dagger sheathed for now. Renly understood. Kindness bled coin, coin bled power. But power rooted in fear proved fleeting. Robert's reign had shown that. That evening, Garland Tyrell guided Renly beyond the city walls to the unfinished siege lines where engineers toiled. The chain across the Blackwater had been restored, anchored to 2 massive capstans. Lanterns bobbed along catwalks as welders hammered links red-hot into place. Garland, ever the patient brother, explained gauge and tension, windlass ratios, the need for counterpulleys halfway upriver lest the chain sag under Stannis' flagship Fury. Renly listened, asked questions until engineers cast surprised glances. Few kings studied cogs with such care. "When will it be ready to raise?" he asked at last. "By sunrise tomorrow," Garland assured. "We've coated each link in river oil. Any torch sent to burn through will only set water ablaze around Stannis's hull." Renly almost laughed despite fatigue.
A cruel est.
A necessary one. Garland unscrewed a brass plug on a bronzed cauldron set upon a cart. Emerald vapor curled up.
Wildfire primer.
One spark. Once the chain rises, the river becomes boiling glass. Stannis' sailors will jump into a grave of flame. Renly stared a long moment. The river's moonlit surface rippled quietly, innocent. "May the gods forgive what men must do." Garland made sign of the seven. Better a river tomb than city pyre. The night before the prophesied third dawn lay thick and windless. In Maegor's holdfast, Cersei paced her chamber's confines, barefoot on cold marble. A single candle burned beside a goblet of wine she had not touched. The wildfire lamp stolen away left her with only bitterness to stoke. She thought of Joffrey, confined to the maiden vault, railing. He had broken a chair upon learning the small folk threw rotten cabbage at his standard. Myrcella wept at dusk, begging to sail to Sunspear. Tommen asked for Ser Pounce. The cat had vanished amid chaos. Cersei's heart twisted with an anguish none would ever see. They had stolen her throne, her children's future. Yet she could still ruin the thief's feast. She knelt beside the hearth where a single log smoldered. From beneath loose stones she withdrew a small vial stoppered in wax. Wildfire concentrate, stolen in a slipper-heel days before her capture. Enough to ignite a stable, perhaps more if Vermilion fate favored. When her guards changed at midnight, she would slip behind them, spill green death along the holdfast store of barley sacks. Stores now feeding Renly's host. Let them choke on mercy. Yet as she stared into the vial's trembling glow, she remembered Tommen's round cheeks. Myrcella braiding her hair with ribbons. Fire would spare none. Her children would know their mother for Kinslayer, Queenslayer, and Realm Burner. She hurled the vial into the hearth. Flame whooshed green, licking the chimney. Sparks billowed. Smoke stung her eyes. Cersei watched until the glow died to embers, then collapsed upon the floor, sobbing soundless tears into her hands. Renly did not sleep that night. He walked the ramparts above the mud gate where scented torches flickered atop purple Tyrell mounts. Below, fishermen's skiffs bobbed, nets drawn. Beyond the chain, a hush clung to the river mouth as though air itself waited. Brienne approached near dawn, helm under arm. All watchmen stand ready. Scouts report sails to the east, many, yet they lay at anchor. Stannis perhaps delaying or praying. Renly nodded. Or both. Dawn will show truth. Brienne studied him a moment. "You fear, yet hold it close." "I fear because I see too much to lose." Robert only saw what he could win. He smiled faintly. "I suppose I grew up watching his mistakes." Hoofs clattered behind. A galloping horse, foam-flecked. Ser Parman Crane leapt down, helm askew. Ravens from Bitterbridge. Ser Loras returns by sunset with 5,000 heavy horse and 2,000 levies. Relief and guilt warred in Renly's chest. Relief for strength, guilt for risk Loras took. "Tell Garland to prepare south encampment, and send riders with lanterns to mark shallows. Cavalry must not founder." As Crane bowed, horns sounded from river towers. 3 sharp blasts. In the dim gray east, sails unfurled, black with fiery heart sigils. Hundreds. Masts like a skeletal forest against morning's edge. Renly's voice rang hard. "Raise the chain!" Capstan drums thundered. Links groaned skyward from dark water, dripping weed and oil. Stannis' fleet advanced, oars biting. At its vanguard, fury cut water like a huntsman's dagger. Melisandre's crimson cloak visible at prow even across half a league. She raised arms. Wind seemed to answer, filling black sails with uncanny billow. Brienne's hand moved to sword. "She works sorcery. Then we meet it with steel and flame." Renly signaled torchbearers lining the river piers. They thrust brands into cauldrons, green fire blossoming. The chain reared from water with a serpent's hiss, blocking Blackwater's throat. Fury did not slow. Melisandre's voice floated, faint yet piercing like oboe across still water. The night is dark and full of terrors. From her hands a spark, red as heart's blood, flew high, arcing. It struck the chain. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then oil erupted in incandescent sheet. Molten green fire poured riverward. But instead of retreating, Fury rammed the flame wall. Wildfire splashed aside like living emerald, splitting around her hull as though parted by unseen barrier. Gasps shuddered along the walls. Renly's bones iced. He turned to Brienne. Did she see? Brienne's eyes flared. Suddenly, behind Fury, other galleys veered left, right. Sailors shrieking as wildfire licked their decks. 2, 3 ships ignited, screams carrying across water. Stannis' line broke chaotic. Renly seized vantage. Signal the Scorpions. Target the flagship's mast. Bolts streaked, black spears against brightening sky. One struck Fury's yardarm, splintering wood. Yet Melisandre still stood untouched. The chain itself glowed where her spark burned. Links wrenched, metal sagging molten. With a groan like a dying god, the chain snapped, sinking beneath bubbling jade. Renly stared. Not possible. Brienne's voice was flint. It happened. Below, Fury surged forward. Behind her, Stannis' crimson and black personal banner whipped. Wave spray hissed from the prow, extinguishing stray flames on water. Renly's throat tightened with a sudden thought. Wildfire. If that barrier breaks near shore, the city will burn no less than if Cersei had lit the barrels. He drew sword, antler hilts catching dawn. Lower the harbor boom. Galleys, ram from flanks. Scorpions, aim for Melisandre. Drums thundered anew. Tyrell galleys pivoted like swans to hawks, oars churning. The Lady Lyanna and Merryweather rose shot forward, rams iron-capped. On decks, archers loosed flights, arrows arced in black hail. One struck a priest on Fury's forecastle, sending him toppling with a shout. Yet still Melisandre did not falter. She raised both arms high, and the very water beneath Fury thrummed crimson. From river depths a shape writhed, a coil of fire? No, shadow, rising as if birthed from black water. A serpentine shadow half the length of the flagship, maw gaping silent roar. Along the wall soldiers gasped, some dropped bows. Renly felt his knees tremble. The air vibrated with impossible cold. Shadow Serpent lunged, not at the city but sideways towards Tyrell galleys. It smashed water, sending a swell that capsized a supply barge. Renly forced breath. Catapults! Fire pots now! Flaming pitch flew, some splashing harmless. One pot landed upon Fury's deck, bursting in oily blaze. Sailors scrambled, but again a wave, unnatural, washed up, smothering flames. Brienne spoke. Your Grace, the gods are at war out there. They wage through mortal hands. Renly's jaw set. And so shall we. He turned to a runner. Find Maester Haleen. Bring 3 of the largest wildfire casks to the King's Gate. I will deliver them myself by boat. The runner paled but sprinted. Brienne stepped before Renly. I will captain that boat. No, he said gently. Your vow is to guard me here. I will go. Her blue eyes clouded. My oath is to keep you alive, not fixed in stone. And mine is to keep this realm breathing. He gripped her shoulder. Trust me. When Loras returns, tell him roses grow even in shadow. He'll know. He descended the stairs 2 at a time, cloak snapping. Behind, Brienne's voice called once, then fell silent. At the quay, maesters struggled rolling barrel casks, green wax seeping at seams. Renly stripped crown, handed it to a trembling squire. He donned a half-helm, plain steel, no antlers, pulled gloves tight. He boarded a shallow-draft river skiff with 4 oarsmen, each stalwart smith long used to heat and danger. 2 casks lay amidships, bound in net. 3rd served as makeshift barricade near bow. Renly took the tiller. Row! The skiff slid into chaos. Wildfire patches still flickered on water, painting green aurora on hulls. Tyrell galleys harried Stannis' line. Some rams splintered Fury's escorts, but the flagship pressed. Shadow Serpent coiled about the Lady Lyanna now, mast creaking as crew shrieked. Renly steered for Fury's starboard quarter. Arrows fizzed. One clanged his helm. He prayed his plain armor would mark him as mere captain, not king. The Serpent, half mist, half darkness, reared above Lyanna. Jaws yawned. Suddenly a shining point streaked from the galley. A ballista bolt tipped with dragonglass, forged by Garland's craftsman, pierced the shade. The Serpent writhed, dissolving into tatters of night. Cheers rose across water. Melisandre's head snapped toward the wound, eyes glowing crimson. Fury faltered. Renly seized moment. Now! Oarsmen heaved. The skiff swung under Fury's towering flank, beneath or lines. Renly leapt forward, slit rope on foremost cask. Green goo leaked onto deck. He shoved with boot. Cask toppled into water, bobbing under hull crevice. Second cask followed. He lit a pitch-soaked arrow from ship's lantern. Knock to you, bow borrowed from oarsman. Flames danced on shaft. He drew, aimed where casks floated in Fury's lee. The distance 8 yards, wind nil. He released. Arrow kissed river, hiss of steam. Then white silence sucked all sound. Wildfire erupted in twin pillars, green exploding sky-high. Fury's flank lit spectral bright. Hull planks burst outward. Oars shivered like snapped ribs. The deck pitched as men screamed. Renly's skiff lurched, almost capsized. Heat scorched his cheeks behind helm slit. He threw himself flat. Oily fire washed overhead in a sheet. The plank beneath him smoldered but held. When roaring subsided, he lifted head. Fury's aft half still floated, sails aflame. Amid debris he saw Melisandre, cloak smoldering, kneeling at shattered railing. Her eyes burned across water, fixed upon him. In that gaze he felt not hate, but cold promise. Oarsmen yelled. Fury's mainmast cracked, thunder of timber. Renly seized tiller, shouted to row. They pulled away as flagship sank by bow, dragging flame-wreathed wreckage. Cheers thundered from city walls. Bells rang riotous. But Renly's triumph dulled when he saw Melisandre step onto a floating beam, crimson gown untouched by flame. She raised arms. From sinking ship's shadow another shape slithered, smaller, more defined, humanoid, featureless black. It slipped beneath river surface toward the city embankment. Renly cursed. To shore! Faster! They reached quay as the shadow reached wall base, vanishing into drainage culvert. Renly vaulted onto stone, sprinting. Guards gaped. None recognized the soot-stained night until he lifted visor. Shadow in the culvert, he gasped. Seal every grate. Torch tunnels. Brienne appeared, sword red-edged from recent combat above. She took in his state, eyes wild, then turned bellowing orders. Men dashed to haul iron grills shut. Barrels of pitch rolled to outlets. Below ground, muffled screams echoed. The watch torch parties met something unseen. Then silence. Renly staggered against parapet, chest heaving. Brienne reached him. You live. He removed helm, soot-streaked face. So do we all, for now. From southern gate horns sounded. 3 rising notes. Dust plume raced up Rose Road. Loras Tyrell's column arriving, banners streaming. Fates will turn anew. Renly straightened. Open the gates. Today Rose's water city walls with blood enough. Let them bloom. Brienne nodded, but her gaze held dread. The red woman yet breathes. So does the realm, Renly answered. Let us keep it so, even if we must strangle shadows. As sunrise bled gold across smoke, King Renly Baratheon strode to greet his lover general at the city gate, crownless but unbowed, while Blackwater Bay hissed with dying flames behind him. A crucible where mercy and war had met, and each had learned the other's price. Wind from the south rose hot and grudging over King's Landing, carrying a rank stew of river smoke, charred pitch, and the acrid ghost of wildfire still hissing upon distant flotsam. It was the taste of battle half-fought, not won, and to Renly Baratheon, standing atop the gate of the gods with soot crusted beneath his nails, it tasted of unfinished labor. Below, the Rose Road churned beneath a blinding plume of dust as Loras Tyrell's cavalry thundered toward the open city gate. 5,000 destriers in shining barding, columns of green and gold helms that glittered like a moving field beneath the late afternoon sun. Trumpets blared, pennons snapped. The great gate's portcullis rattled upward with a winch cry that echoed through the city's shattered calm. Renly drew one long breath, letting blade-greased air fill his lungs. His armor had not been changed since Dawn's duel upon water, and every strap and plate bore testimony. Tar stains from the skiff's smoldering rail, pale scrapes where arrowheads had skittered off the steel, soot where Shadowfire's heat had licked but failed to consume. He felt each blemish as a bruise on his rein. Still, he lifted a gauntlet hand in salute as the first vanguard clattered beneath the arch. At their head rode Loras, visor lifted, lilac eyes bright with triumph and worry both. A breath later, the Knight of Flowers reined to a halt on the broad plaza within, hooves scattering loose cobbles like dice. Renly descended the stone steps 2 at a time. When boots met ground, Loras swung down in a single fluid motion, armor clanging. They clasped forearms, a soldier's greeting masking an embrace. Sweat streaked Loras's hair, and splashes of dried mud marred his polished gorget. "The road from Bitterbridge was clear," he said, voice pitched low as they leaned close. "Your banners flew over every holdfast north of the Blueburn. Not a hedge knight dared lift steel against us." Renly's answering smile was weary but fierce. "Then half the realm has taken root at your passing. Welcome home to a city still breathing." Loras's gaze flicked to distant Blackwater smoke. "Barely breathing by the smell. I heard thunder from 20 leagues away. We spurred at full gallop the last stretch." He brushed soot off Renly's pauldron with an ungloved thumb. "My king risks too much skin. Better mine than theirs." Renly's eyes went to the swelling ranks behind Loras. House Tarly's tight blocks of halberdiers trudged under crimson falcons. Rows of Fossaway apple-green shields glimmered between mounted Cerridon spears. Banners of Ashford, Graceford, Roxton rode the dust like bright fish in shallow surf. He exhaled. 7,000 swords tips the scales, if steel can outweigh sorcery. Loras's brows knit. He glanced beyond Renly to the smoldering bay. "Tell me all. Tonight," Renly promised. "First, water the horses, billet the foot, post sentries on Visigna's hill. We hold council at moonrise in Maegor's gallery. Bring Garland, Tarly, and Maester Gorman." Loras nodded crisp orders to his captains, then fell into stride beside Renly as they crossed the plaza toward the gatehouse stairs. Brienne of Tarth joined, matching step, helm dangling from her hand like a steel moon. One quick glance between Brienne and Loras sparred silent tension. Then both returned rigidly to the business of war. Inside the city walls, chaos flexed and settled with every heartbeat. Tyrell quartermasters bustled to commandeer warehouses. Gold cloaks and fresh-dyed green tabards redirected refugee streams away from main thoroughfares. Beggars thronged corners chanting the king's name for scraps of half-burned bread. Above, the bells of Baelor's September pealed once, then again, then fell into uncertain silence as if the great crystal knights themselves could not decide between prayer and alarm. Renly's procession wound through Ironmaker Square, where casks of grain were stacked 3 stories high under watch of Stormlander bowmen. Children scrambled like mice atop sacks, giggling until sergeants shooed them off with the flat of pikes. The king paused when one ragged boy offered a half-wilted bundle of wild rue. "For luck, M-Lord," the boy mumbled. Renly tucked the herb beneath his gorget, nodding thanks that brought a grin too large for the boy's smudged face. Past the square, they skirted the charred remains of a fish market stand. Here the wildfire serpent's heat had melted copper pans into greenish puddles. Beyond, the street of flour rang with hammer blows as carpenters erected new stalls under banners that fluttered with hastily painted stags. Flour dust hung in lazy clouds that turned sunset shafts to gold. Through this haze trudged Gendry smiths hauling anvils and spare axe seized from empty guild halls. Renly took note of every spark, every patch of broken cobble, every hungry gaze tracking his retinue. Mental debts to be paid once breathing space returned. At last they reached the King's Gate stables, where Renly's own gelding rebel waited. He handed reins to a squire. Brienne cleared her throat. "The tunnels have been sealed as ordered," she reported. Pitch poured and lit where the shadow was seen. No trace since, save one dead rat black as charcoal. Her jaw flexed, but fire cannot slay air itself. Loras's hand found hilt. "If shadows walk, we meet them with sunsteel. Let them flee daylight." Renly forced calm into voice. "Shadows bend, but they cast no mind of their own. Melisandre is mind and will. We break her, not her phantoms." He looked at Brienne. "Double watch on every sewer grate. Post 2 torchmen at each shift, not one. Shadows fear pairs." Brienne touched fist to heart. "As you command. Then rest none until the city sleeps," Renly added softly. She bowed and strode away. Moonrise bled silver across the Red Keep's battered towers when council gathered in Maegor's gallery. Once a place of silk-swathed revels, tonight it served war. The feasting tables cleared save for maps, tally boards, and trays of cold meats that no one touched. Iron sconces guttered. Rain threatened, a humid hush pressing against arrow slits. Renly stood at the head of the longest table. To his right sat Loras, armor shed for quilted gambeson but sword still belted. Next came Lord Randall Tarly, stern hawk profile etched deep by torch shadows. Garland Tyrell occupied the opposite flank, sleeves rolled to elbows, hands stained with tar from chain rigging. Baelish lounged near the brazier, fingers steepled. Grand Maester Gorman fussed with inkpots, his bald pate shining. And at the far end, Commander Jacelyn Bywater leaned on his hook in silent watch. Renly struck pommel to oak for quiet. Stannis floats crippled beyond the mouth, licking burns. His flagship is sunk, 5 escorts broken. But his army yet numbers near 10,000 on Dragonstone, and Melisandre remains. He tapped a dagger tip on parchment map. "Tonight we plan not only for dawn, but for winter." Tarly's gauntlet finger stabbed northward. "Lord Tywin remains the greater threat. He massed at Harrenhal by Raven this morn. 25,000, siege engines and cohoric cell sails. He can march upon us in 3 weeks. He might turn west if Robb Stark harries," Garland suggested. "Robb Stark bleeds in the Trident," Tarly countered. A new raven speaks of skirmish setbacks near the Green Fork. Lord Bolton's men flayed 2 Lannister outposts but withdrew. Wolves and lions circle, yet neither tears out the throat. Renly lifted palm. "We cannot wager on Stark victories. Therefore I propose alliance." He met each gaze in turn. "Tomorrow I dispatch Ser Courtenay Penrose aboard swiftest sloop to Riverrun, bearing sealed terms. Robb is named Warden of the North and Lord Paramount of the Trident. In exchange he recognizes my crown and commits 5,000 foot for the Riverlands campaign." Loras smiled. A carrot that leaves Stark pride intact. Baelish's chuckle carried edge. "And if young Robb demands to keep his kingly styling? King in the north, furs warm a youth's shoulders nicely. Then we offer finer fur, winter subsidies, rights to toll half the D. Adger Road, remission of taxes for 5 years." Renly set quill to parchment, scribbled as he spoke. "Coin costs less than blood." Tarly grunted but nodded. "So long as coin flows." Baelish's mouth curled, but his eyes glowed at mention of coin. "Speaking of which, the Iron Bank answers your request. They require surety, hostages, or mines." He drew a narrow scroll from sleeve. "They propose a 5 million dragon line at 6%, payable in 3 harvest seasons, collateralized by Storm's End harbor duties." "Too dear," Renly said at once. "We accept 3 million at 4% with a harvest grace. Collateral the Summerwine tithes and Tyrell cosign." He turned to Garland. "Your house's vines yield interest enough." Garland's brow lifted, but after a moment he spread palms in acquiescence. "Highgarden's coffers are deep. Better my father's purse lightened than our armies starved. Then send reply, Renly ordered Baelish, and recall, interest buys time, not victory. Baelish bowed with feline grace. Time well bought, my king. Bywater shifted. On matters of victory, my men scour the tunnels but morale wanes. They lost 2 torchbearers to an unseen blade. His hook scraped wood. Fancies spread faster than pox. Renly met his eyes. We need a symbol. He turned to Tarly. You served with dragonbone bows at Summerhall burnings. Can fire be tamed to hunt shadows? Tarly scratched beard. Smoke and light can reveal illusions. A ring of mirrored shields could catch moonbeams into culverts. But steel seals surer. Collapse the tunnels entirely. No, Renly said. We cannot blind ourselves to our own sewers come siege. And small folk need drains. Loras leaned forward. Then hunt the shadow at its source. Melisandre cannot conjure endlessly if we sever her from Stannis. Strike Dragonstone tonight while he reels. Gasps flickered around table. Tarly's brows plunged. Madness. We haven't keels enough for assault. Garland's voice held calm counterpoint. We have 30 fresh galleys uncommitted, plus the river flotilla. If smuggler routes remain unguarded, a strike force could land on the seaward cave and scale Birdwing Ridge unmarked by main garrison. Baelish tapped lip. A raid to slay a single sorceress. High risk, no guarantee. Renly stared at Dragonstone's red ink silhouette on map. Fire shadow images danced in memory. Fury splitting green cascade, serpent of darkness coiling. He thought of the dead torchbearers, the green-scabbed corpses bobbing in the bay's slack tide. For a breath he listened to Hall's hush, heard a faint distant shout from barracks yard, clang of hammer on anvil, life forging onward under his fragile crown. Worth the risk, he said. I fixed him. He straightened. I will lead. Loras's fist struck table.
No.
It must be me. The people see their king bleed for them. They'll bleed in turn. And Melisandre has tasted my defiance. I would face her glare to glare. Garland spoke softly. Brother, a king slain on foreign rock topples more than one realm. Renly's jaw set. Then let the king walk with shield of faith. He looked to Brienne, who stood behind him like carved glacier. You ride. Her answer never wavered. Always. Silence. Then Tarly huffed through nose. If the plan is taken, let us forge it well. 2 picked knights, stripped of heraldry. Landing craft black-pitched. High tide tomorrow midnight. Agreed, Renly said. Loras, I stay. The Knight of Flowers confirmed through clenched jaw. Someone must hold city and chain. So the decision sealed itself in hearts and ink. They hashed hours of tides, coded lantern calls, fallback signals. Baelish produced a tiny silver seal shaped like mockingbird to mark cipher wax. Gorman drafted prayers for safe passage. Maps littered floor until torches guttered to stubs and a lavender rim of dawn peeked through arrow slit. When at last council adjourned, Renly lingered. Loras waited by window, moonlight painting melancholy across cheekbones. Renly approached, sliding mailed fingers over Loras's unloved ones. The touch hummed with unsaid dread. Let me go instead, Loras whispered. I know the island's cliffs from joust stories. My horse is nothing to you if you do not return. Renly shook head. Your horse carries the standard in my stead. If I fail, the realm must still see a banner. He drew Loras closer until foreheads touched. I will return, or the wind will carry word enough for you to build anew. Loras's breath trembled. If you die, I tear down these walls stone by stone until shadow takes me too. Then do not let me die, Renly answered soft. For I would see these stones turned into gardens by your hand. Their lips met, brief and fierce. When they parted, Renly felt the taste of salt. His or Loras's he could not tell. They stood until footsteps echoed. Brienne entered, helm beneath arm. The moment snapped like a twig. Renly squeezed Loras's shoulder once, then turned to business. The sloop chosen for the raid bore no name. Sailors called her Inkfish for hull blacker than the sea at moonset. At dusk she slipped from Mud Gate, oars muffled, shielded lanterns hooded. 43 aboard. Renly in boiled leather brigandine darkened with lampblack. Brienne armored but for painted devices. Ser Courtney Penrose to guide. Ser Emin Cui, Ser Rabar Royce, 3 Stormlands bastards, 8 Tyrell spearmen, 12 of Tarly's hard-eyed archers, 6 volunteer shipwrights who swore by Mother Royne they could scale rock faster than gulls. A crate of mirrored discs lay lashed amidships, a cunning rig to bounce moonlight into caverns. At Renly's feet rested a bundled cylinder of dragonglass bolts, black as midnight terror. The voyage took 4 hours, Blackwater mouth falling behind as night thickened. Stars pricked overhead. The half-moon slipped in and out of shredded clouds. No enemy sails followed. Stannis' remnants clustered near Sharp Point, repairs glinting in distant crank fires. Inkfish hugged the coast, weaving among shoals. At last, the volcanic gray mass of Dragonstone loomed, jagged silhouette like some forgotten WRM sleeping upon waves. Wind carried faint scent of brimstone. Renly exhaled tension into chill air. "Oars," he whispered. Blades rose dripping. The sloop coasted under its own gloom shadow toward a chasm where sea surged.
Brienne lowered ganghook.
Storm surge thumped hull against basalt once, twice. Grapples flew, anchoring to pitted ledges. Shipwrights scrambled first, silent shadows on rope. Renly followed, boots scraping igneous scale. Upwards they climbed through sea spray until foothold found on ridgeline narrow as a lance. Above, towers shaped like wyverns' tails stabbed starlight, their carved maws flickering with torch embers. But this seaward face was near unmanned. Stannis' men watched the harborside fearing fleet assault. Courtney signaled. Forward. They crept along ridge, skirting thermal vents warm underfoot. A low archway yawned ahead. An exhaust shaft from the kitchen's Melisandre had commandeered for her night fires. Heat throbbed out. Behind, archers unlatched mirrored discs, adjusting angles. Moonbeam caught one plate, glinted. Renly winced. Too bright? But reflection darted into vent like silver knife. Inside, shouts rose, cooks startled by sudden glare. Discs angled again, flooding tunnel with jittering white that shredded every shadow. Over the racket, Renly and Brienne burst inward, blades drawn. Few within were soldiers. Knives clattered to flagstones, men raising flower dust palms in surrender. They were bound and gagged swiftly. Penrose led onward through serpentine corridors lit now by archers' mirrored shafts bouncing from disc to disc in improvised relay. Shadows scrambled, shrank, ran. Whenever a niche seemed too deep, an archer angled fresh gleam until no darkness clung. They neared the stone drum, Dragonstone's ancient keep. When first true resistance came, 4 guards in lordly crimson surcoats, spears leveled. Brienne surged ahead with shield high, spear points skittered off. Her long sword snapped 2 shafts, left third spurting blood as she shoulder-checked last man into wall with a crunch. Silence fell but for gurgle of mortal wound. Renly knelt beside dying guard. The man's eyes, glimmering with torchlight, searched his. "Tell Stannis," Renly whispered. "This day might have been ours both if pride yielded." The guard tried to speak. Blood bubbled. Then stillness claimed him. Renly closed lids. Up spiral steps they raced. Smoke of incense choked stale air. At landing's iron-bound door, an engraving of Lollaress' blazing heart gleamed. Penrose mouthed, "Her chamber." Renly signaled 3 archers forward. They knocked dragonglass bolts. Hughie's boot smashed latch. The door swung wide into a vast round chamber awash in crimson silks, braziers roaring. Melisandre knelt in center upon a sun-shaped mandala of fresh ash, hair billowing as though underwater though no wind stirred. A brazier before her churned green flame that hissed like serpent tongues. She rose but did not turn. "So the deer stalks the dragon's roost," she intoned, voice carrying unnatural echoes. "The night is dark, yet you chase it with candles. Foolish deer." Renly stepped inward, blade raised. "Candles enough to burn the night away. End this war, priestess." Go back across the narrow sea and leave Westeros in peace. She pivoted. Her red eyes, were they truly red, or merely flame reflection, held him with ancient calm. Peace. She reached toward Brazier. Fire flowed along her arm like liquid jade until her palm glowed. Peace is dream. War is God's forge. And your death is the spark that births dawn. Brienne moved to flank, but Melisandre flicked fingers. Sparks flew. A plume of shadow burst from Brazier, coalescing into a half-formed humanoid. Black smoke shaped as Renly himself, crowned with antlers of void. It leapt with silent snarl. Archers loosed bolts. Dragonglass sliced through vapor, but the shadow rippled, reknitting. Brienne stepped between Renly and the specter, shield braced. She felt nothing at impact, only cold deeper than life, yet her arm went numb. She gritted teeth, swinging sword. Steel met nothing but gloom. Penrose appended lantern. Oil spilled across runes on floor, catching stray moonlight reflected from corridor discs. Fire blossomed white gold, slicing circle in smoke. The shadow recoiled, edges tattering where light bit. Renly advanced, antler hilt high. I cast my own shadow, he declared, voice ragged yet steady. And no false kings. He thrust blade into core of smoke. Metal met sudden resistance. A heart of quicksilver? The shadow shrieked, soundless in ear yet deafening in skull, then exploded outward in shards of black wind. Melisandre staggered, ruby at throat flickering. Her lips parted in silent fury. Brienne, still half numb, lunged with mailed fist. Impact cracked against Priestess's temple. Melisandre crumpled, braziers dimming to dull orange. The archers bound her with chain links kissed by mirror light. Gorgon's face emerged behind Renly, wide with awe. You have slain Night. Renly shook head. One priestess only. Night remains. They searched chambers swiftly. Parchments of prophecy, vials of powdered stone that glowed faintly, a dagger black as the void. Renly gathered these into sack. Burn the rest, he commanded. Let unholy runes howl their last. Chants echoed upstair. Alarm raised. Inkfish's signal lantern blinked from cove below. Enemy rousing. Huey tossed lamp oil on tapestries. Flames roared. They withdrew down corridors now alight, dragging unconscious Melisandre. Trumpets blared outside. Footfalls pounded overhead. Twice they skirmished with castle guards. Archers felled pursuers, leaving corridors strewn with bodies and flame-dancing shadows that now cast but one shape: Renly's company. At cliff edge, siege horns wailed. Distant torches converged. Inkfish bobbed below, grapples ready. They lowered priestess first, trussed like calf. When Renly clambered down rope last, arrows hissed from above, one slicing sleeve. Penrose cut lines, oars dipped. The sloop pulled off as molten pitch rained futile from walls, sizzling in foam. As Dragonstone receded, flames danced along its seaward tower, a beacon of crimson wrath. Stannis's war horns keened. Yet on board Inkfish, Melisandre lay bound beneath mirrored shield that glowed with moonlit defiance. Her eyes opened once, and in them Renly glimpsed both fury and curiosity, as though even she had not foreseen this strand of fate. They reached Blackwater Mouth before dawn.
Belle rend open recognition, Torchelli rend par cher.
Loras awaited at Mud Gate astride a dappled courser, armor polished as though sleep were a myth. When Renly stepped onto pier, Loras dismounted into a stride, meeting him halfway. Wordless, they clasped tight. Only after long moment did Renly murmur, "She lies below, breathing yet." A tilt of head toward sloop. Loras pulled back, scanning Renly's face for hurt. "You smell of dragon's belch. Better that than stag's char." Renly managed a grin. Brienne climbed up, arms trembling from final haul of mirrored discs. She saluted Loras. He inclined head stiffly, tension thawing by grains. "You guard him well," he said. She answered without flourish. "Or the gods do so through me." They escorted Melisandre, still silent, through streets where dawn-stained rooftops rose. Small folk watched in wonder. Some spat, sensing her otherness. Gold cloaks parted, spear points down. At Red Keep's base, Grand Maester Gorman awaited with phial of milk of the poppy and a ravenquill. He blinked at the sight but ushered them toward black cells, as far from sky as stone allowed. Inside damp corridor, torch sputter cast unkind glow. Melisandre's feet brushed straw, chains fixed to wall. At last she spoke, voice thin as dying ember. Bind flame, and your darkness grows. She lifted eyes to Renly. When ice marches and dead walk, you will beg for light. Remember this cell. She closed lids as if retreating within. Renly exhaled. No more riddles. Let her rest. He gestured jailer to lock door. Outside the cell block he sagged against wall. Loras supported elbow. Bathe, drink, change. Court awaits at midday to hear your victories. Renly's lids fluttered. Court can wait behind hungry bellies. Send word, free bread at river wharves, and set singers on every corner. They must drown whispers of sorcery with music. Loras chuckled. Must they sing roses? Sing stags, roses, wolves, doves, anything alive. He straightened. I won't let dread eat this city. 3 days passed beneath a fragile peace. Dragons made of rumor still circled tavern talk, but no shadow stalked the sewers again. Garland's engineers reinforced manholes with iron grates etched in 7-pointed stars. Brienne drilled torch pairs methodically until gold cloaks might wield lamp as sure as spear. Prisoner Melisandre accepted no food save water. She spoke seldom, eyes half-lidded, as if watching unseen stars. Ravens flew. From Winterfell came Robb Stark's curt acceptance of parley. Lord Tully would host envoys. From Harrenhal came report that Tywin's host marched north to confront Bolton's near Maidenpool, buying the capital weeks perhaps. From the Iron Bank, a sealed scroll with terms nearly as Renly demanded, though interest fixed at 4 1/4. Baelish smirked at that quarter as though reading a secret jest. Yet still unrest simmered beneath streets. Refugees crushed alleyways. Prices of saltfish tripled overnight. 2 dockside warehouses were looted by starving gangs when tarpaulin covers slipped, revealing Tyrell cheese wheels left unattended. Renly ordered immediate quarter ration distributed, but gold cloaks cracked a few skulls to maintain lines. On the 4th night after Dragonstone, a storm finally broke. Winds pummeled city from the north, lashing rain through slanted roofs. Lightning twisted sky lime green, reminding all of wildfire's hue. Renly paced throne room balconies, staring at the concussion of waves striking cliffs below. He could not sleep. Images of Serpent Shadow and Melisandre's prophecy flickered whenever lids shut. At 1/2 wolf hour, Loras arrived draped in cloak damp with rain. News, he said without greeting. A courier from Storm's End rode through lightning to bring this. He produced parchment stamped with sigil of a shell. Renly read by torch. Words blurred between flashes. Storm lords in the Rainwood had risen for Stannis. They planned to seize Storm's End once Tyrell garrison thinned. They think me occupied here, Renly murmured. Brienne, standing watch, said, if Storm's End falls, supply lines falter, and your birthright seat bleeds pride. Renly's jaw tight. Then we cannot let it fall. Loras caught his hand. Send Ser Rowan with 2,000. We stand stronger here with you. Rowan rides slow. Renly folded parchment. Stannis's loyalists are swift. He stepped to balcony edge where wind whipped cloak. I'll sail before dawn. Again, Loras near shouted above thunder. You tempt the stranger nightly. Renly placed hands on Loras's shoulders. I left that castle once for ambition. I will not abandon it now to spite. He glanced at Brienne, her face unreadable but eyes steady as anchor. Will you guard city in my stead? I serve you, not walls, she answered. Renly turned to Loras. Then both of you remain. Honest tongues may fail here if mine departs. But melded, your swords keep crown steady. The Knight of Flowers looked between king and guard. Questing pain flared, then steeled into duty. He bowed. We remain. Renly kissed his brow, rain mingling with sweat. Storm's end stands by faith. I'll return within fortnight. The Draman summer storm cut through black waves before morning. Renly stood at prow, cloak sodden, staring east where red sky cracked cloud. Sailor's warning. He felt the weight of crown left behind in Loras's safekeeping. Upon his head now sat simple iron warhelm, yet in heart, heavier crown pressed. Lives of thousands, burgeoning hope of a realm dared to believe mercy might survive war. He recalled Melisandre's last words. When ice marches and dead walk, you will beg for light. He pictured storms of snow across fields, corpses stirred by sorcery, and shuddered though warm rain pelted. Dreams of terror belonged, he thought, to nights far north beyond King's quarrels. Yet every prophecy of hers had wound binding threads through waking world already. It would be folly to discard this last. The wind veered, snapping rigging. Sailors labored. Renly closed eyes, let salt wind slap resolve firm. He had war yet to win against pride, hunger, and fear, perhaps against death itself if shadows foretold more than one priestess's magic. But under storm-lashed sky, he found an odd peace. The work lay vast, yes, but it was living work, beating like the loud heart of the world. He opened eyes to the dawn. Lightning forked behind them, but ahead the horizon brightened. A pale line of promise limned across restless sea. Somewhere beyond, Storm's End crouched upon cliffs, battered by same wind yet unbowed. Like him, like the realm he meant to forge. Renly Baratheon gripped the rail, rain-slick steel under fingers, and whispered to waves. Let it not be mercy that chokes on its own kindness, but mercy that stands, antlers unbroken, when the last shadow flees the sun. The ship drove on, prow splitting dawn-colored water, toward a coast where storm and siege waited, and where the next turn of a king's story would carve its mark in wind-flung spray. Dense with peril, radiant with possibility, and far from any ending yet.